U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. Shalom.
Shalom.
Thank you very much for this interview. First of all, please, a few words about the latest declaration. President Trump declares a war, economic war, D-Day against Iran. What will we be seeing soon?
I think he's going to put maximum financial pressure on them. He's done that in the past. He did it in his first term. It's very effective. Iran is deeply weakened because of the epic fury that happened earlier in the spring. They're hurt militarily, they're hurt economically, they're certainly hurt diplomatically, but they're not willing to give up that quickly. And it's frustrating, I think, for the president to deal with a country that even when they're down on the ropes, they pretend that they're just doing great. A great example, if you remember the movie Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and when the knight comes and he slices off both arms and legs of the Black Knight, and the Black Knight continues to say, "'Tis but a scratch." That scene reminds me of Iran. No matter how many ways they get beaten to a pulp, they pretend they're okay.
Could it be that President Trump is frustrated and even surprised as a businessman, but maybe you're familiar with the Middle East, that's Iran?
It's always been Iran. 47 and a half years of saying they're going to kill us, they're going to kill Israel. That's their MO. It's what they do. It's what they believe. But it's not just words, and this is where Americans need to wake up and get real. These are not empty words of threats and waving a sword in the air. These are people that really do want to kill us. And if we don't believe that, we're playing a fool's game. Because if you look at what they have done, where have they spent their money and energy? Not only on their own weaponry, but financing and supplying Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis. If there's terror going on in the world, it typically can be traced back to Tehran.
Did President Trump believe at the beginning, and maybe that's why he's frustrated now, that together with Israel, we'll be able to topple the regime?
Well, I think we still hope that can happen, but it will also require not just the external pressure militarily and economically, it will ultimately require internally the people of Iran rising up and saying enough. Now, they tried in January. The problem is in Iran, the only people who have guns are the military, part of the regime. So if people rise up to protest, they get shot, or they get put in prison, or hanged. And it's pretty discouraging. But it doesn't mean that it can't and at some point won't happen, that the people will have a way to express themselves to the point that it collapses the regime.
Are Israel and the U.S. really on the same page in terms of Iran? We know that Israel has many goals regarding proxies, regarding the ballistic missiles. Maybe we're not on the same page. There was a feeling that there were differences.
I don't think there are any significant differences. President Trump has talked about the missile inventory, how that it's ridiculously high. There's no reason for them to have those kind of stocks of missiles in Iran. He's absolutely been clear. No enrichment, no nuclear weapon. President's never wavered. He's not even drifted slightly off course on that particular direction that he's made clear. He's also made clear on the Strait of Hormuz, it's got to be open. It's been a ping pong game back and forth. But I don't think there's been any difference in the president's message, and I can't really think of any differences between his message and his doctrine and strategy and that of Israel.
Now, regarding Syria, we saw the Israeli strike in Syria basically to stop the buildup of a Turkish military presence there. In the beginning, there were briefings according to which the U.S. was against, and then we heard that Trump, when he was interviewed about it, didn't really go out against it. What is the American stance, the U.S. stance, regarding this attack in Syria?
I think it's a simple matter of recognizing that when Turkey begins to move military forces further south, that appears to be a threat to Israel. And they're not going to just stand by and say, sure, come on down. Because they have enough enemies as it is. Those enemies are close. They're not fools. They don't particularly trust people who also tell them they want to take over East Jerusalem and re-establish the Ottoman Empire, as President Erdogan has publicly stated on numerous occasions. So they're going to be careful. And I think what happened, if this were a baseball game, an American baseball game, and I hope your audience will be able to get the reference, this is like when the pitcher brushes back the batter who's crowding the plate because he's getting too close, and the pitcher knows the one way to get him to back up a little bit is to put one right there within inches of his chest.
But the difference here between Iran and Turkey is that Turkey is more in relations with the U.S. Erdogan is good relations with President Trump, so it may be different.
It's different in that regard. Turkey's a member of NATO. U.S. does have a good relationship with Turkey. But at the same time, that does not preclude the fact that when Turkey begins to move military assets further into Syria, it's not good for Syria. It's not good for Israel. It's not good for the world. So it's a matter of trying to keep some balance and perspective. I don't think it was an intentional. If you look at what actually was done, there were some munitions that were put down on an airfield, no casualties. It was, I would say, a shot across the bow more than it was an attempt to try to start something.
U.S. supports the strike?
I don't know that the U.S. has taken a position one way or the other. Certainly not publicly. It's a matter of we'd love to see calm in the region. We want to see Syria succeed. We want to see Syria come to a security agreement with Israel. I think that's very possible. But let's hope it happens sooner rather than later. But it won't be helped if it appears that Turkey is trying to establish a firm foothold in Syria.
Bereaved families from the war, from terror, came out against the fact that your administration and Jared Kushner, the emissary who was here, are in direct negotiations with senior members of the Hamas terror organization. We all remember, you remember what Hamas did, what Hamas is doing, what Hamas wants to do.
Yeah.
How do you relate to this criticism, not coming only from bereaved families, but yesterday it was felt very strongly?
I understand it. I think the reason that the envoy, Jared Kushner, had the meeting was because he wanted them to hear firsthand. So there's no doubt, not through mediators, not through the Qataris, the Egyptians, the Turks, but firsthand from the United States, that there is a full expectation that they will live up to what they agreed to, which was disarming, demilitarizing, and recognizing they have no future in Gaza. So I don't think people should be alarmed or as much upset as they should be grateful that we're sending the message to their faces and making it clear that this is just not something, that is being said and maybe, I don't know, possibly gently said. It was boldly said and forthrightly said to them, your time is up.
America still sees Hamas as terrorists, murderers?
Absolutely. They are still what we've always said they are. They're a terror organization. They're not a government. They're savages. What they did on October the 7th is the unspeakable horror of this generation. It belies any sense of civilized behavior. And the U.S. has been steadfast in saying Israel has a right to continue to deal with Hamas. That's why you didn't see anyone from the U.S. screaming at Israel because they were defending the Yellow Line in Gaza or taking out some terrorists who have murdered, raped, and beheaded innocent civilians.
So really regarding Gaza, how does Trump, how does the U.S. see the future in Gaza? We heard about the ideas of taking all the residents out of Gaza. We're not hearing that anymore. We heard about the Trump resorts and the Trump hotels in Gaza. Not hearing that. Maybe it's all about telling Israel, keep it down, calm down. The Hamas will be okay. They won't go back to their murderous ambitions. What really is the goal and the vision regarding Gaza?
Very fair question. Here's the answer. Nobody in the United States is naive enough to think that Hamas is going to change their ways, that suddenly they're going to wake up one day and say, man, everything we did was so wrong. We're going to change. Nobody thinks that. We know who they are. We saw what they did. They haven't changed. They haven't given up one weapon. Let's keep in mind, when we talk about disarming, I was interviewed earlier this week by a Saudi Arabia television network. And one of the questions was, how come Israel doesn't start withdrawing from Gaza? How come, it's all about what Israel needed to do. And I said, let me ask you something. Let's remember that the very first element of the 20-point peace plan is Hamas has to disarm. So how many guns have they given up? How many? Can you give me a number? Well, the number is 0. Not a pistol, not a rifle, not one, not even so much as a slingshot. So for anybody to think that somehow Hamas has changed its ways, obviously they haven't.
But Prime Minister Netanyahu felt that it was important to make a statement that he is against the plan as it is now.
He's against the 15-point revision. He has stuck with the 20-point, which starts with Hamas disarmament. I think there's some confusion there. Look, the Prime Minister has been a partner in this process for the peace plan. The fact that he has been participant in helping to establish the ISF, the International Stabilization Force, and hosting the CMCC, which now has become more of the operations center for what's going on in the future of Gaza. Israel has been incredibly cooperative, but never at the expense of their national security. That's where the line is drawn, and I don't think anyone expects anything less from the State of Israel.
Now let's go to Judea and Samaria, a place that you love. You could say we're familiar.
I do love it.
With your connection to the
80% of the Bible
residents.
happened in Judea and Samaria, so it's an important part of the history of Israel and the biblical background of Israel.
So as someone who loves the land and understands and loves the people, the pioneers and residents of Judea and Samaria, could you understand that people were even surprised and maybe also insulted by the fact that you called some of the residents there who are involved in violence terrorists?
Well, it is terror when you try to change the behavior of people through acts of intimidation, acts of violence, when you burn people's cars and their homes, and when you squat in the homes of people who own their property, and you make them afraid to live there, afraid for their children to play in the yard. What else do you call it? That's what terror is. You don't have to murder somebody to terrorize them, but you do have to change their behavior. Here's what I don't think people fully understand. There are 500,000 people living in Judea and Samaria who are Israeli. There may be, in the best estimates that I have for it, coming from military and police sources, there may be 300, maybe at tops 500 people who are engaged in any of this activity. And of those, many of them, if not most, don't even live in Judea and Samaria. They live outside. They just come in and they cause trouble. Here's why I say what I say. Because no one is doing more damage to the reputation of Israel and the Jewish people than this little band of people who are doing criminal acts. These are not acts of just vandalism. This is crime. And when crime terrorizes people, it crosses into terrorism. You cannot call these people vigilantes. Vigilantes are people, and I don't support it because that's outside the realm of law, and Israel stands for law and order. Israel would be defying its own values if they believed in vigilantism. But vigilantes go and take revenge for a crime committed. Well, a person who's living in their home, raising their children, they may be Palestinian, that's not a crime. So for someone to come and to burn their car and to take over their home, that's not being a vigilante. That's being a criminal, a thug, a terrorist. I take nothing back from that, and I'll tell you, they need to stop it because what they're doing to the damage of the 500,000 good, decent people in Judea and Samaria is having international repercussions, the likes of which they have no idea.
Really, because you say what you say about the numbers and understanding, but the world, in terms of international media and also other countries, see this as the big pictures. This is the settler violence.
Yeah, and I don't like to use the term settler violence because I say these are not settlers. These are unsettlers. These are the people who are unsettling the region, making it difficult for the good people who live there to live there in peace and raise their families as Israelis.
You mentioned in previous interviews a joint force that is now in Judea and Samaria. Can you tell us a bit about that?
It's always been there. It's been there for years. It's a force that involves the United States, Israel, Palestinian police, the Netherlands, Canada, the UK, France, and Italy, and I think Germany is involved. There's a host of countries that make up the Office of Security Forces. Their job is to deconflict. It's to deal with issues in Judea and Samaria. It's been overall a very effective way for an international body working with both Israel and the Palestinians to try to bring some level of calm. It's very challenging. It's led by a 3-star U.S. general, and it has been now for a number of years. We have a new one who just came on board a few months.
They're countering violence from both sides?
Absolutely. Yeah, because this violence is wrong. It doesn't matter who does it. What matters is
It's
this
about
is being
monitoring.
done.
It's not about policing.
Well, they don't have the authority to police, but they have the authority to deal with both Israeli and Palestinian forces to try to deconflict, to find out where the problems are, and to work toward bringing some solutions.
Okay, now in terms of Judea and Samaria, let's talk a bit about sovereignty. After President Trump's answer to an ARUTZ SHEVA question, actually, in the White House, it seemed that sovereignty is something that may happen. Now it already seems that that's not exactly the direction. President Trump said enough, we don't need that. Will it happen? Could it happen?
You know, I think ultimately that's going to be something that'll be up for the state of Israel to decide. The U.S., I think, would say that there's a time, there's a place, there's a lot of tension in the region. Nobody wants to see that tension erupt into something far greater. So hopefully what we're going to see is a de-escalation rather than an escalation. That's why this problem with the small group of vandals, terrorists, criminals, whatever you wish to call them, that's why it's so hurtful to Israel. It's hurtful to its future. I'd love to sit down with those people and say to them, do you love your country? Do you love being Jewish? Then you're hurting being Jewish. You're hurting the Jews around the world, and you're hurting the state of Israel and its reputation. It's hurting everything. It's going to completely make it very difficult for ever that to be a consideration. That's why I'm saying, tell me one positive thing that comes out of these people going in and burning a person's car, stealing their flocks of sheep, or burning their olive trees down during the olive harvest. One thing.
But regarding sovereignty, is that something that you on a personal level hope to see? Israeli sovereignty in Judea and Samaria?
You know, one of the challenges of being an ambassador, I don't get to have a personal opinion. My job is to carry out American policy. When American policy is handed to me, my job is to support it.
And the American policy at this moment
I
is
think
opposing that move?
I think it's to maintain as much order as possible and to try to do everything we can to not see an escalation of conflict, violence, and disarray.
We're talking a lot about the challenges here in the region. Back home in the United States, anti-Semitism is rising. How could we change this?
Well, it's hard to fight it for a couple of reasons. One, so much money is being poured in by some of the Muslim Brotherhood affiliated states, whether it's Qatar or Turkey or wherever. I think also China and Russia are feeding it on social media, bot platforms, and pushing the narrative. It's challenging. Israel is great at fighting kinetic wars. I would say they could do better fighting the message war, telling their story. But they're up against a huge monolithic media that is out to get them. And the old saying is, it's not paranoia when they really are out to get you. But there are some things that need to happen. One, we need to call it out for what it is. We don't need to be silent. We have to brush it back. When people use the term anti-Semitism, I've decided that it's a term that has almost caused people to be numb. They don't really absorb it anymore. So I just call it what it is. It's Jew hatred. That's what it is. It is a blood libel against the Jewish people, and it's irrational. If you think about why do people hate Jews? They represent 0.05% of the world's population. 0.0, not 0.05%. Out of all the world's population of billions, the totality of Jews on planet Earth is about 16 million, half of whom live in this little strip of land.
So much hate.
So if you think, why are you afraid of such a small population? Do you really think that this population, this tiny group of people could take over the world? If they could, let them have it. I mean, give them the keys. They must be doing something right. I'm saying that facetiously. I don't want another Tucker Carlson moment where he takes me out of context and lies about it.
What's the answer? Why?
I think the answer is several things. One, get aggressive in the media message. Two, bring people to Israel. Let them see it for themselves. No better way to counter the nonsense and the lies of genocide and apartheid than for people to come here and see it. And third, we've got to do a better job of the education system in America. It has been littered and poisoned with the propaganda paid for by the Qataris and others who have poured billions of dollars into universities indoctrinating kids. And we have to challenge the social media platforms with better information, because unfortunately most people under the age of 35 get all of their news from TikTok, X, from Instagram, and it's rarely credible.
Okay, let's end with elections, and you may not say anything because it's Israeli elections, but the quote is as follows. President Trump says, "I think it's most appropriate for me to stay out of Israeli elections, but I may endorse somebody." Now that's a very Trump quote. How do you look at that quote, and generally speaking, the policy?
You know, President Trump has a statement he often makes. He says, "We'll see. We'll see how it turns out." And that's what I would say.
Sometimes he says in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a week. Thanks for your attention to this matter, he will say. And I would say, you know, I think the president certainly cares deeply about the future of Israel. He's going to be an Israel supporter because he knows of its strategic value to the U.S. But whether he engages in the direct election here in Israel, I mean, it's his prerogative. I cannot. I'm prohibited by U.S. federal law that I cannot get involved in it. But the president has the freedom if he wants to. And whether he decides that it would be helpful or hurtful, I think that'll be the basis on which he decides.
There are many good words that you could say about his cooperation, is the way he's been working together with Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Without a doubt. I don't think there's any world leader with whom he's had a stronger, more personal relationship. I mean, look at how many times the Prime Minister has been in the White House since President Trump was sworn in for the second term. Far more than any other world leader from any country. So their relationship is not just a statecraft relationship, it is a deeply personal one. Whether that results in an endorsement, I don't know. But I hope that if the Prime Minister is not reelected, I hope whoever is will recognize the extraordinary partnership between the U.S. and Israel and will work to have as strong a relation.
Regarding the demand, the pressure from Trump to President Herzog to grant pardon to Netanyahu, where's that holding?
I think it's a matter of President Herzog has processes and procedures that he has to follow. He can't, I mean, I guess he could, but he's a man of integrity, and I have great respect for President Herzog. He's a close friend, and I admire him very much. And I think what he's going to do, and what he is doing, is taking his time and weighing through all of the processes and what it was required, and he'll make a decision that he believes is the best for the state of Israel. And I have total confidence in his integrity to do that.
So I had to end with questions about the elections and that atmosphere of elections. We're feeling it. Do you feel it as well? Every second question, people are calling, trying to pressure.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's part of the game. I've been doing this now for 30-something years, 35 years or longer, living in the swarmy waters of American politics. I find that Israeli politics are even more contentious at times. So it's not a surprise, and that's part of the game. And it's kind of fun to be in the middle of. It's better not to be the candidate, though.
You should try once.
I did that, yeah.
Now, just to end with on a personal note, and it's not about policy, it's about your feeling being here for how long already?
Well, a year and a half as ambassador, but having come here now off and on over 100 times
we've
for
been accompanying you for
53 years. You and I have been in many places around the country, probably for 20 years, I guess. And, you know, it never gets old. I'm never bored, that's for sure. And I find Jerusalem, for example, to be a very lovely, livable, and incredible place to be. I think it's the epicenter of the earth. I mean, it's just something happening here every day that is consequential to the rest of the world.
Despite all these years, what have you learned throughout this year and a half about Israel, about the people, about the nation?
You know, it's not that I've learned something about the culture, the people so much. I would say two lessons. One, I am impressed with how professional our staff is at the U.S. Embassy. I don't know that I was expecting maybe the level of quality that we have there. I was honestly thinking it would be more of a very stubborn bureaucracy that you often find in government, and I've been pleasantly surprised to work with a great team. The second thing, I always knew about the resiliency of the Israeli people, but when you're here for an extended period of time, and a year and a half I've been through 5 wars, I cannot tell you how blown away I am that in this environment, when most people's country would be in near collapse. The GDP has grown in Israel in the midst of wars. The stock market since October the 7th is up 100%. It's a very vibrant economy, and if one just goes to a high point of lookout in Jerusalem and looks out, you will see 300 cranes building things around Jerusalem. Now, if your country is dying and falling apart, the cranes aren't going to be there building anything. You'll see big wrecking balls tearing stuff down. It is a remarkable country, and I attribute it to the extraordinary resilience of the Israelis, who, as Golda Meir said so eloquently in 1973, after the Yom Kippur War, when someone asked her, "How did you win this war? You weren't supposed to. It looked like you were done for. How did it happen? What is your secret weapon?" they asked her. And she said, "We have nowhere else to go." And I always think about that quote and realize there is not just a raw resilience, but there is a rigid determination that the Israelis as a country and the Jewish people know that this is their last refuge. This is where the land God gave them, the land that is theirs for 3,800 years, and they don't plan on going anywhere.
Ambassador Mike Huckabee, thank you very much.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to get to visit with you. Thanks.